that the university does the right thing.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Your time is up. Thank you so much.
This is going on and on like.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. And if you can mute yourselves if you are talking. Attorney Barge Miles.
Curtis Johnson.
Good afternoon and greetings to the FAMU Board of Trustees, Chair Harper, Vice Chair Gibbons, entire Board of Trustees, President Robinson, senior leadership, faculty and staff, and Vice President of Athletics, Ms. Tiffany Dawn-Sykes. I come before you today as the President of the Florida A&M National Alumni Association. One of my primary responsibilities as President of FAMU NAA is to be the voice of the alumni body and to convey their collective views and opinions concerning issues related to our beloved Florida A&M. Over the past couple of weeks, the alumni have spoken in many languages: pride, championship, support, confusion, and even disappointment. It has always been the mission of the FAMU NAA to support all students of FAMU through recruitment, financial support, retention, and connection after graduating. And it's a mission that we are currently providing through our national scholarship to the tune of $150,000, our SOS scholarship, which approximately has been about $60,000 disbursement this year, and the 80 plus chapters of the FAMU NAA that raise funds to support their local students attending Florida A&M University. When the call came from Sykes to raise funds to support a campaign to secure funds for FAMU football coaches' compensation, the alumni rallied over the Christmas holiday in a span of approximately 72 to 96 hours to raise $140,000 to secure FAMU NAA commitment of $25,000 per year for 3 years, and to help offset the coaches' compensation and to assist AD Sykes in this area of budgetary challenge. This exemplifies the pride, championship, and support of Rattler Nation. The confusion and disappointment comes in that while we recognize that AD Sykes has the authority to make athletic hiring decisions, no shared communication of the hiring process for the head football coach or transparency with key stakeholders not only led to confusion, but downright disappointment from these stakeholders that have continuously supported the efforts of athletics. At the very least, the stakeholders could have rendered insights, comments, and even sentiments of the collective bodies we represent. As a leader, the one thing that helps us leaders be better leaders is communication and information. The more you have, the better the process of taking facts from all sides and having to make the best decision in that moment. The lack of collaborative communication with the FAMU NAA, which is the collective voice of the alum, compelled a vote of no confidence in the leadership of Ms. Tiffany Dawn-Sykes as a leader of FAMU athletics. As stated in the letter dated January 11, 2024, to Dr. Robinson, AD Tiffany Dawn-Sykes, and to the BOT, we the alum await the vision of the university and athletics on how we move forward together from here.
Johnson, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Curtis Taylor.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Curtis Taylor, and proud president of the National Rally F Club. And on behalf of our board members and supporters, we thank President Larry Robinson and the Board of Trustees for this opportunity to address the hiring of our new head football coach. First, the National Rally F Club was started in 1989 by FAMU former athletic director Coach Hansel Tooks, with former Rattler football greats, including Purcell Houston, our first president, Sammy Marshall, and Curtis Miranda, 3-time All-American at FAMU. The goal then and remains the same today is to support all sports at FAMU. Over the years, we have donated over $1 million to support FAMU athletics. Annually, we support course summer salary, investing in champions, summer scholarship, Hall of Fame blazer, women's sports, Marching 100, Atlanta Awards Guild, football reunion, and other programs. In 2023, we sponsored the first reception for senior athletes and supported the National Student Athlete Recognition Day. In addition, we have over $130,000 in our scholarship endowment fund at FAMU Foundation. Second, we had a great football season. We beat our state rivals, BCC. We won the SWAC, and we won the Celebration Board. So we had a lot to celebrate. To help keep Coach Simmons here, the National Rally F Club committed to providing $50,000 for the next 3 years towards Coach Simmons' salary. After all the victories and support, somehow, we still lost our head football coach. And because of all the communication going out about bringing in an outside head football coach, we're now losing our assistant coaches and our players. We just lost one of the greatest recruiting coaches in Florida, in South Georgia, and South Alabama. Thank goodness he's going to be with Prime Time in Colorado. Third, we recognize that the 80s is her decision to choose a head football coach. However, we believe that we currently have excellent coaches on staff from which to choose. We will increase the likelihood for continued success, continuity, and stability with the football program in 2024 and beyond. Fourth, we believe it will be extremely beneficial for all major supporters of FAMU, the National Rally F Club, the National Alumni Association, the FAMU Boosters, and the 220 Club to have input and being involved in the selection process of choosing our next head football coach. Finally, today, we encourage the Board of Trustees, President Robinson, the athletic department, and all our supporters to do the right thing. And how Coach Billy
Mr.
Rose.
Taylor, your time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Vanessa Myers.
Ms. Byers, you are recognized. Ms. Byers? Okay.
That was our last comment.
Okay. Thank you so much to everyone who made public comment. We certainly value your input. The purpose of this meeting today is to provide an update on the head football coach. VP Sykes, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. At this time, I will provide the Board of Trustees with the status of the FAMU football head coaching vacancy. Upon learning of Coach Simmons' decision to pursue another opportunity, I began outlining my vision for FAMU's 19th full-time head football coach. After establishing my vision for this role, based on what I determined to be programmatic needs on and off the field, I met via conference call with the FAMU Football Leadership Council. I also took calls from individual football players to find out what was important to them and identify our next head coach. I immediately began the search. It was important to me that the search be comprehensive and thorough, yet swift. I enacted this strategy because I wanted to provide stability to the program and also being mindful of the upcoming National Signing Day on February 7th. I was motivated by the desire to retain all of our talented student athletes, as many coaches as we could possibly retain, and to have a coach identified before the upcoming signing day. A number of candidates were considered for this vacancy. I received calls, emails, and texts from agents, co-workers, alumni, and coaches referring themselves or others. After reviewing candidates, I narrowed to a pool of smaller candidates and shared their resumes and my feedback on these candidates with Chairwoman Harper and President Robinson. From that, I recommended a candidate for hire to President Robinson, who after interviewing that candidate supported my decision. After receiving his support and the support of Chair Harper, who also interviewed the candidate, I began providing individual briefings to the Board of Trustees. While conducting those meetings, unbeknownst to me at the time, this information was shared on social media. I immediately began receiving calls, texts, emails, and notifications from constituents who were disappointed in the process. I read hundreds of emails from diehard supporters demanding more transparency about the process and inclusion in the process. And I heard you all loud and clear. It is clear to me that we have the same goal. We all want what's best for our student athletes and for our championship football program. Just recently, I celebrated my 1-year anniversary as the athletics director at FAMU. Throughout my first year, many of you welcomed me into your homes, your businesses, your RVs, and even into your tailgate spaces to share with me what it means to be a part of the family. While I have learned a lot, I recognize more than ever that there is more for me to learn. I'm willing to do what is needed to continue developing relationships and building trust with our constituents. I will do so by making sure your voices are heard in this very important process. Moving forward in this process, I will be utilizing a search firm. The firm will begin by conducting interviews with constituents to find out what is important to them and our next head coach. This will be done to give the broader FAMU community an opportunity to be a part of this process. Your valuable feedback will be combined with my vision for the role and the requirements for the job to allow the search firm to identify candidates that fit our collective desired profile. The search firm will then provide me with those candidates I will review, enter, and then recommend selected candidates for the vacancy. While speed was initially a high priority, and it is still important, it is much more important for me to identify the right person to lead FAMU football. I look forward to engaging with the leaders of our DSOs, affinity groups, and other stakeholders on this important decision in the very near future. My goal is to name a permanent head coach before National Signing Day. Again, I appreciate your passion and concern for FAMU football and look forward to working with the broader FAMU community to identify our next football coach. That concludes my update on our head football coaching vacancy. Thank you.
Thank you, VP Sykes. Before I entertain questions and comments from fellow trustees, I'd like to make a few comments. As you know, there is so much to celebrate when it comes to student success at FAMU. Being a top 100 university, the #1 public HBCU for the 5th consecutive year, #3 among all HBCUs, record philanthropy, record R&D expenditures, #21 on social mobility index, and really altering the economic trajectory of students. We are winning in the classroom, on the gridiron, diamond, track, and field with SWAC titles in 5 sports, including but not limited to football. And as the HBCU college football national champions, I think it's fair to say that we all want to sustain our championship momentum. I certainly want to publicly thank Coach Willie Simmons for leading the football team to victory, and to thank Rattlers and supporters near and far for what you've done to support our student athletes. I don't begrudge Coach Simmons for making a decision that many of us have made within our careers, doing what's best for his career and family. And as we bask in the euphoria of the Celebration Bowl victory, we now find ourselves in this situation. So as chair, I want to share my thoughts on the process, the pool, and my priorities. I've benchmarked the process to fill head football coach vacancies at our sister SUS institutions and with fellow board chairs. And we are following the same process as that of our peers. The AD, the president, and I have been working together and will continue to work together to explore and evaluate a pool of candidates and move through this process. Make no mistakes about it. I am first and foremost a 2-time FAMU alumna. I bleed orange and green. I'm a lifetime NAA member, a lifetime boosters member, and I have never and will never do anything intentionally to bring harm to FAMU. Board, as you know, when it comes to personnel decisions, there's only one employee that the board is responsible for, and that's the president. All other personnel decisions are that of university employees and administrators. And while as board members, we don't make personnel decisions, the president does confer with the board chair on certain positions, including the head football coach. So working in tandem with President Robinson and AD Sykes, you can rest assured that I will continue to do what I've done consistently since 1995 when I stepped foot on the highest of 7 hills. And I'll fulfill the promise I made to this board when you unanimously elected me as your chair, because I have no other outside interest other than doing what's best for FAMU. So as it relates to priorities, it goes without saying that athletics is an important component of our reputation, our morale, and our legacy. And this isn't a decision that should be taken lightly. There are a number of factors to be considered in this process, so I want to share with you what my priorities are as I confer with AD Sykes and the president. First, my #1 priority is continuing our primary mission of educating students. This isn't a professional sports league or franchise. We're an institution of higher learning, and we have to operate as such. And importantly, we are an HBCU. We are FAMU with a rich legacy and heritage. It'd be disingenuous to ignore the fact that football is our largest revenue generating sport. And of course, we want to sustain our championship momentum. Therefore, X's and O's matter. So does coaching records, experience as a collegiate head football coach, being fiscally responsible, retaining, recruiting, developing staff and students, managing the contemporary dynamics of the transport portal, engaging fans and key stakeholders, including current and prospective sponsors and donors, embracing and uplifting our HBCU culture, creating a culture that inspires and serves as a role model for young men so they can be great on and off the field, and most importantly, supporting academic progress to enable student athlete success. However, there's another component that's less popular, but nonetheless important to me, and that's the ability to and experience navigating the complex NCAA landscape. We have to maintain compliance and adherence with university, conference, and NCAA rules and regulations, including but not limited to academic progress rates. And as AD Sykes mentioned, with National Signing Day just over 3 weeks away, time is of the essence. So every day this process is extended, we lose the opportunity to recruit and retain high quality coaches and players. So I ask for your trust and your support as I work collaboratively with AD Sykes and the president in this process of hiring a permanent head football coach, and welcome any additional priorities that are of importance to you. I do see two hands. I will recognize Trustee Lawson.
I think Trustee Gibbons was ahead of me, but I'll wait in the queue for him, Chair Harper.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw your hand first.
Oh, okay, I'll go first then if that's okay. So thank you, Chair Harper, for that overview. And before I say anything, I do want to congratulate former Coach Simmons and the entire football team and staff. They made us so proud in Atlanta. But the one thing I do want to draw all of our attention to is fiduciaries of the university. We're currently in a situation where we're rolling with a budget deficit or an unbalanced budget. We're looking into the windshield of a multi-year contract for a new head coach, whomever he might be. Everybody has their own recommendations or input. But I would like for us to first, prior to entertaining any contract for any individual, address the current situation with the budget. This was known and informed to us at our last face-to-face meeting. So there's been quite a bit of time that's transpired. So prior to us doing anything, I'd like to see a plan one to address the budget deficit prior to any discussions of a multi-year contract. And I'd actually like to put that in the form of a motion with a certain date of next Monday to see a definitive plan to address the existing budget gap. So I move that the leadership team puts together a comprehensive plan to address the existing gap. It won't be 100%. There's always room for error, but we'd like to see that in a one-page document by Monday of next week. And the reason I'm using date certain is because we've had this knowledge for quite some time. So that is my motion.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. However, I do have a procedural question for our parliamentarian. According to our operating procedures, no matter may be considered at a special meeting that wasn't included in the call of the meeting.
Madam Chair, but I think that Trustee Lawson did put that and send it for, he put all of these issues forth in his email to, and the chair did not put them on the agenda.
If I may, Trustee Gibbons, that may be correct. However, the chair sets the agenda along with the president. However, I do believe, based upon what Trustee Lawson said, that is related, and he properly moved it before the board, so the board would have to vote.
Madam Chair, that's for your information. We are fairly confident we can provide that within the time frame indicated by Chair Lawson. We have, at least in the last week, there have been these 2 meetings on athletic budget, and I think to prepare, to put that report together. Thank you.
Thank Thank you. So there is a motion on the floor that has been moved and seconded. Is there any commentary or unreadiness? Trustee Lawson, would you mind repeating the motion or?
Yes, Trustee Harper. Yes, thank you, Trustee Harper, for in that parliamentarial procedural clarification. So thank you. I had a lot to get that word out. The motion simply is to have a one-page overview of the action plan to address our current budget shortfall by Monday of next week, published to all board members for full visibility.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded to provide a one-page overview of the action plan, the athletics action plan by Monday. I believe that is January 22nd.
Yes.
Published to the Board of Trustees.
Right. It's not action plan, it's a financial plan.
Trustee Reed, you recognize, and then I'll recognize Trustee Washington.
I was just confirming it wasn't the action plan for athletics. It was really the financials for athletics.
Correct, Trustee Reed.
Thank you. Okay. Trustee Washington?
That was my clarification as well. Just wanted to make sure we had an update of the current financial status in that action plan.
Okay. Any additional unreadiness? Okay. Attorney Burge-Miles, shall we call a voice vote, or this doesn't require a roll call, right?
It doesn't require a roll call.
Okay. So the motion is to provide a one-page overview of the athletics financial action plan by Monday, January 22nd, published to the board for visibility. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
Trustee Harper, I have a second motion, please.
Okay.
My second motion is regarding the search. So first, thank you, Dawn-Sykes, for announcing that you will conduct a search. My motion is specific that there is to be a search committee engaged in working with the AD on the search that involves the respective constituency groups. I won't restate those groups, but I think we've heard loud and clear that this process needs to be highly inclusive given the magnitude of the magnitude of the position and the importance of this role to our continued athletic success. So I motion that the search process includes a full-blown search committee that has the appropriate representation from each of the major constituency groups. I realize that there's some built-in inherent risk with doing a search because there's some critical timelines that we're bumping up against. However, given the criticality of this role, I'm willing to take those risks. That is my motion.
Second, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, I want to add to that motion.
If you could hold on just a moment. It's been properly moved and seconded. Trustee Gibbons, do you have an amendment?
I would like for former Chair Lawson to add those committees so that there's no ambiguity in his motion. The stakeholders that he's talking about.
That was mine also, Chair Harper, to specifically list.
I'm sorry, Chair Harper, may I address the question?
Please go ahead, Trustee.
So the major constituency groups would be the National Alumni Association, the Booster Club, 220, Rattler F Club, and obviously someone I believe should be there from the foundation because they provide significant input to help with all financials. So I hope I didn't leave anyone out from a DSO. I'm sorry, in student government, I see Trustee Manos' hand. Yes, student government as well. And because we want to be inclusive, inclusive without creating bureaucracy. So I'm still asking the AD to move as expeditious as possible. But I do think, just given the feedback we've received, we want to be as inclusive without creating too much bureaucracy.
Okay, hold on just a moment.
Madam Chair, we have a hand in the audience for
Trustee Klatz. I see Trustee Klatz's hand.
From the parliamentarian, Madam Chair, if you would.
Okay, the parliamentarian is recognized, and then we will address all others in the order that they are seen.
Thank you. I'm trying to get some clarity here. Is that motion, Chair Lawson, for you to direct the president to do so? Because the president is the board's only employee. That's first of all. And the second thing, I don't know what that contract with the search firm is going to entail. So that contract with the search firm may not entail having a committee. So that's something that at this point, I don't think can be addressed until the search firm contract is looked at. I don't know what search firm is going to be selected, and I don't know what the terms of that contract are going to be at this point in time.
Sure. Attorney Wallace, you make a great point. So may I amend my motion, Chair Harper?
Yes.
My motion is amended to ask President Robinson to ensure that there is a formal search committee established, that the contractual relationship with the search firm dictates as such, and that the appropriate constituencies are represented on the search committee with the intent of not being bureaucratic, but with the intent of being very inclusive.
I will second that motion, Mr. Lawson, if you would just to be clear so that we have no ambiguity, that you put the president of the foundation, the president of the F Club, and the president of the National Alumni Association on there.
I accept that.
That way we can move this process along.
I accept the recommendation.
So let me restate the motion.
Platt has some comments on that.
I'm getting to you next, promise. The restated motion is for the president to establish a search committee in concert with the search firm to include, let me go back to my previous notes, to include one representative from the NAA of the following organizations: NAA, Boosters, 220 Club, Rattler F Club, Foundation, and SGA. Is that correct, Trustee Lawson?
No, ma'am. I changed the motion. I amended it. I think he accepted my amendment by saying just the president of those organizations so we can move the process along.
Okay. Trustee Klatt, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, and I implore my fellow trustees to make sure that we keep some type of an order in this. Trustee Lawson, I completely agree with your motion and theory. I have had a similar motion that I wanted to make, and I want to make sure the chair is aware of that because it kind of overlaps with yours. I would like for President Robinson to have a way for his athletic director. The athletic director reports to the president, not to the board. So the board needs to know that when the AD makes a recommendation to the president, that the stakeholders have been included. And the stakeholders for athletics, I would include the 3 DSOs, Foundation, NAA, and Booster Club, presidents. And then I would also include the F Club and the 220 Club because of their ongoing financial support. I think they need to have a voice. And then their voice, the presidents of those groups, reflects the voice of the alumni base. We have to have a process. Now, we have to be also cognizant, the board has to be cognizant. We've said a lot of things that we want to happen. And then we've also ended them by saying the AD should be swift in selecting the next person. So we're adding on a great deal of stuff that's not going to end in a swift decision. We have to understand that. So again, I agree with Trustee Lawson's motion with the parameters that I just added. The president has to oversee this because the AD reports to the president. But as the board is concerned, we need to know that when the AD has gone through this process, that those stakeholders have had a voice. And I think the NAA president, Johnson, mentioned it well when he said he represents the voice of the NAA, of the Alumni Association. So if we get to a point where the president requires the AD to go through that process, and then we also have to know that the AD walks out of the room as the person who says, this is who we have recommended. That group doesn't get to make that final decision. They get to make recommendations to the AD that goes up to the president, because if not, then we've hired a person and we've told them that they have no authority. So we have to be very careful and very cognizant of how we do that. in our professional lives, we don't want anyone telling us who to hire. So we just have to be careful on a board and our governance portion of that. And that governance starts with the president of the university. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Trustee Klatt. I'm going to recognize you, Trustee Brown. VP Sykes, I just want to clarify the process that you laid out earlier. You did mention engaging various stakeholders. Can you remind us again what your plan is as it relates to engaging the various stakeholder groups?
My plan for engaging the DSOs and affinity groups was to have the search firm facilitate essentially a listening tour and gather information and feedback from these constituents to provide guidance to myself and the search firm on what candidates fit the profile of what we are looking for in our next head football coach.
Madam Chair.
Are you finished, AD Sykes? I'm going to recognize you next. Trustee Gibbons.
Right, and from the pool of candidates that have been narrowed down by the search firm, I would then interview and then identify the next head coach and make the recommendation for their hire as person.
Okay.
There's a motion on the floor, and we should be addressing.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a motion on the floor.
We should be addressing that specifically.
Yes.
So, Chair Lawson also eloquently mentioned the budget portion of it, which is a different motion which we've approved. So demanding this search firm is going to cost additional money. We need to understand that versus the AD and the stakeholders meeting, discussing this, and then funneling it up to the president is a different avenue that could be a little more within our budget.
Trustee Harper, if I may, Attorney Vice President Attorney Wallace, Trustee Klatt, was that a friendly amendment to the motion that was already proposed by Trustee Lawson?
It absolutely was, Attorney Wallace.
Okay, I just wanted to know because you expanded what was Trustee Lawson's original motion. And so I just want to have clarity. Okay, so Trustee Lawson.
Yes. Trustee Wallace, you may want to. I think you're probably recording it there. I will accept the friendly amendment because I'm very cognizant of cost. However, there's significant value in using a search firm to bring people to our purview that we may or may not know, as well as to help pull people from existing programs, even though I think we have some pretty good people right there in Tallahassee. I am more a proponent specifically of us having a diverse, inclusive cadre of people around the table to quantitatively score via some type of rubrics each candidate so that we have documentation and record of how each candidate performed throughout the interview/discussion process. In my opinion, that can be done with or without a search firm. I will accept Trustee Platt's friendly amendment and leave that decision up to the president, but I am firm on a search committee that's inclusive of those individuals that I listed previously.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying. So I just want to clarify that the friendly amendment that you have accepted, Trustee Lawson, is to engage stakeholders from the NAA Boosters 220 Club, Rattler F Club, Foundation, and SGA to be a part of the search process.
Search committee.
Search committee.
Yes, Trustee Harper, that is correct, and that is accepting of, you've combined Trustee Klatt's friendly amendment with my original motion. I'm accepting of that.
Thirdly,
okay,
Madam Chair, because there's a difference between representatives and what I think are the original proposed presidents of those organizations. That simplifies the matter quite a bit. Since they are the voices, so we don't have to have multiple people from those entities serving on this search committee. So I would like to go back to Chair Gibbons' original motion, I guess, amendment to your motion, Trustee Lawson.
Yes, sir.
To have the presidents of those organizations to be very specific.
I accept, and trustee, well, excuse me, Dr. Wallace advise me if this is appropriate. I accept both trustee Gibbons' friendly amendment to include the president's and trustee Klatt's friendly amendment. Is that acceptable?
So you're accepting an amendment to the amendment, which would be, and let me just remind all the trustees that the search committee is open to the sunshine.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Therefore, no trustees will be on it. So I am accepting of both friendly amendments.
Well, SGA can't.
And so the one exception is Chairman, Madam Chairman, will be the
SGA president, yes, yes.
So I thank you for clarifying that. I do want to recognize Trustee Brown.
Hey, I want to just add, Trustee Lawson, one of the other stakeholder groups, the faculty have been engaged with athletics. Yes. There's a representative already. So regardless on how it is done based on the language that we're using, I just want to make sure that there is faculty representation. Based on your last comment, Dr. Robinson, I don't know if that would, I don't know how that would be appropriate and if that same exception would be what it was for SGA. But either way, I just want to make sure that there's representation from the faculty in the proper way.
So you have the advantage of having a faculty athletic representative already selected, and so
yes. Thank you so much. So, Trustee Lawson, do you accept that friendly amendment to have the faculty representation?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Trustee Harper, I do accept. And Trustee Brown, thank you.
Trustee Gibbons, your hand is raised. Okay, maybe that's historical. Okay, so are there any additional comments regarding a search committee?
I do want to just offer this comment. Since we operate in the sunshine, once we have a committee and engage in interviews, it will likely shrink our candidate pool. There were a number of highly qualified candidates who have really good jobs now who did not want to jeopardize their current opportunity for this information coming out that they were looking at another opportunity, who will no longer pursue this opportunity because the interviews will be in the sunshine. So I do understand the motion on the floor and understand that I will have to execute based on the motion, but I do want everyone to be aware that our talent pool will definitely shrink once we enact the search committee and interviews.
I'm not sure if I agree, but I understand the concern.
So I'd like to weigh in on the motion on the floor. So thank you again, Trustee Lawson, for the motion. I have a few concerns about establishing a search committee and wonder if the goal of collaboration can be accomplished without a search committee. For example, VP Sykes mentioned a listening tour with stakeholders to include all of those that have been mentioned and named in this motion. So that will be step one. I also wonder if there's a benefit to engaging those same stakeholders in the decision-making process that is VP Sykes to make, along with the president and his delegated authority as it relates to making personnel decisions. Can the same goal be accomplished without establishing a search committee? A search committee will lead to, most likely, more time. And with the pending National Signing Day in just over 3 weeks, I do have concerns about being able to move swiftly through this process with the most robust candidate pool. And so what I'm questioning is, can collaboration be accomplished without a search committee? And it goes back to what I heard Trustee Klatt say is around ensuring that stakeholders have a voice. So can the voice be accomplished without establishing a search committee? Again, in my consultation and research with our peer institutions, and even with Coach Simmons, there was not a search committee. The AD at the time made a decision on who the coach would be, and any consultation that was done in collaboration and consultation and outside of a search committee. So I agree with the sentiment of inclusion and collaboration, but I personally don't feel that a search committee needs to be established. I do see Trustee Klatt's hand and then Trustee Brown, and then I'll go in the following order.
Madam Chair, I've been waiting for a minute.
I'm sorry. I called you earlier and you didn't say anything.
Yeah, I know. But because you wanted to talk about this, you just gave your rendition of what you think needs to happen. But I'll wait until after the other folks.
Go ahead, Trustee Gibbons, and then Trustee Klatt.
No, go ahead. I'll wait. Go ahead, Klatt.
Gibbons, I would open the floor to you if you'd like. First.
Not necessary. Go ahead, Trustee Klatt.
So, Chair Harper, I appreciate you reiterating the comments that I made because I had made them intentionally without using a name, search committee. I agree that we do add time, we do add bureaucracy when we do a committee. That's why my comments were the president is the person that the board goes to. So when the AD comes to the president, the AD should be able to mention to the president, I have spoken to these 5 groups, presidents that I spoke to, the Foundation, NAA Booster Club, F Club, and 220 Club. And after consultating with these groups, this is my recommendation. The AD should have, whoever the AD is, should have the latitude and the authority to do that without it being a full-blown committee. We have to have committee meetings. We have to get them together. The AD should be able to reach out to these presidents, and these presidents will provide the voice of their affinity group. And then that gets pushed to the president of the university, and the president, our only employee, then shares with us. That was the premise of my comment.
Thank you, Trustee Klatt. Trustee Gibbons, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, thank you for recognizing me on this. 2 things quickly I think that we should recognize. While I disagree with you on this matter, I don't know, I think everybody on this phone would see Alabama as a gold standard of athletics. If you look at the speech by the AD on last evening or the night before, he identified the 3 groups that he spoke with. He spoke with the Board of Trustees. He thanked them for the last 48 hours because he updated them on the last 48 hours on what was going on. And he hired a coach who had just played in a national championship game at their level of football. He also thanked the Alumni Association and the boosters. I think that we would have been more than happy to move along with the process that you're talking about, Madam Chair, but we feel failed by the chair and the AD. And also, I have the highest respect for Dr. Robinson, but in the 21 years that I've been a trustee, I can tell you this has been the worst process in terms of keeping the Board of Trustees apprised of what's going on. You said you spoke with the sister universities or SUS folks. I also spoke with ADs. And the ADs told me that in this process, normally the 5 names that they would bring to the Board of Trustees, all of the Board of Trustees, say, here's who I'm thinking about. Can you keep this quiet? And then we'll move this process forward. I think if we were talking about apples to apples, everybody would be fine with not having that process move along with just you, the AD, and the president. I just feel like we did not get transparency. We did not get inclusion. We did not get the integrity that was deserved for the process. And so now we're here. We're faced with this. And I think that the search committee needs to be put together. The other thing that I think that you failed to give us, Madam Chair, is, quite frankly, that when University of South Florida and UCF, and I spoke to one AD who's probably the best AD to ever be in the state of Florida, spoke to an AD who helped build a program. I think you spoke with their chair. The one thing that is very different about this process is they're not running around trying to figure out how to pay coaches. They have a university athletic association that operates year-round with their own budget. We are asking these stakeholders to give money in this process, but we don't want to give them a voice in the process. We did not give them a voice in the process. Going forward, I think that's what former Chair Lawson is trying to create, an opportunity that these folks actually have the opportunity to have some input in the process. If the process had been clean and untainted in the very beginning, we would not be asking for these things. Nobody would have done that. And then the other thing, let's just be clear and realistic about this process. The things that we have been told don't match up to the facts that we get in this process. And so what I'd like to say is, you know, Sykes said to me on the phone, I selected the bowling coach and I selected the women's basketball coach. Well, I had another AD tell me, yeah, nobody gets mad about that, but select the football coach without getting input and see what happens. And look where we are. So I would ask that we move this motion forward. I don't think we need to waste any more time. I think the president of this university has shown that he's very competent in moving the process forward. I am not questioning him in any way, shape, or form. I have the highest respect for Dr. Robinson and the things that he's accomplished. But I also know that a leader can only ask the staff to do certain things. And if they don't do those things, then we are. So I'm done, Madam Chair, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Trustee Gibbons. I see 3 additional hands from trustees. You'll be recognized in this order: Trustee Perry, Trustee Lawson, and Trustee White.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. This is my take on the whole situation. You can still have a search forum do this, and you can still have a committee. You're going to have to segment this thing. The search firm will look, initially screen and narrow that pool down before it's given to a committee. That will save time. And you won't have to publicize those names, and it may help in terms of not putting people forward, having their identity revealed, and they don't stand a chance of getting the job. That's a way that you can do it. And then when you get down to a final 3, then you can bring in and get input from those individuals. The biggest problem and the lesson that we should learn from this whole thing is this. 1, how did we get to this place? How did we lose a coach that did what Sims did? And what did we do or try to do to retain him? We can't answer that question now, but as we move forward, we need to look so we won't be in the same place again. The second thing we need to do is a process that we can memorialize so this won't change from AD to AD as to how we will go about selecting a head football coach or someone else. We need to memorialize that process by a policy so that it will be plain and clear. I just hope that we've learned from this because trust has to be rebuilt. There's been a lot said. Some of it's true, some of it's not true. But we need to look at the process and we need to learn from the lessons. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Perry. Trustee, did I say Lawson next?
Yeah, I think so. So Trustee Harper, Chair Harper, thank you. You got a tough job today trying to keep all this in line. I'm standing by my original motion just simply because we want to have a process that stands the test of time, that is highly collaborative and very visible, and it needs to have a scoring process such that objectively we know why a particular candidate either was advanced to the final round or made it through the final gauntlet. I think the AD obviously should run that process. So to Attorney Wallace's point, my motion is simply asking the president to establish and drive the process that I mentioned in my original motion. So I think, Chair Harper, and you can clarify, I believe there is a motion on the floor. I think we were still taking comments on the motion, but I'd love to call the vote if we could. And then if you so choose, then if my motion fails, then maybe we could rotate to your motion. But I am standing behind the committee because I heard from the alumni passionately their level of lack of engagement in the process. And unfortunately or fortunately, those are people paying the bills. So those are people I think we have to listen to.
Thank you, Trustee Lawson. I am cognizant of time and that we do have a motion on the floor. I do want to recognize Trustee White and Trustee Brown, who's now raised their hand to see if you have comments related to the motion that's on the floor.
Did you ever get Stone?
I did not see Stone's hand. I apologize. Trustee White, is your comment related to the motion?
Somewhat.
Go ahead.
So my first of all, thank you, Madam Chair. My first question is, being the chair of audit, how much is this the cost for this search committee going to cost? Because right now, with us having conversations about the budget, and I know we have the motion was approved for us to see in a week where we stand with the budget. I just have a concern about a new contract while we're still having questions about where we stand fiscally.
The search committee won't cost anything. Those people will participate on their own dime, similar to what we do internally with our search committees. What will cost, as Sykes said, there will be a cost associated with the consultant. I don't know what it is, or the search firm.
Yes, the search firm.
Yeah, there will be a cost associated with that. There's some good ones out there. And at least one of those would likely be able to work with us at a discounted rate. But anyway, that will be the cost. And it could be, I don't know, Ms. Vaughn can tell you that it's not trivial, $20,000 to $50,000 or more, because you're talking about this, and so how this works, right? So since y'all need me, so definitely I might charge a little bit more, right? So anyway, it won't be cost neutral on that part. For a committee, it would be, and we would try to work that efficiently as we could, but there would be a cost associated with it, and some time to get a contract in place and all of that gets us closer and closer. And September, November the 7th, so deadline that he had in mind to try to get this resolved. It won't be free.
All right, and thank you for that, President Robinson and Chair Harper. Again, just going back to it, knowing where we stand fiscally, and then adding an additional cost on there where we were not 100% sure what that's going to be. It's just going to put us in a position to have to dig out deeper. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Brown, Trustee Klatt, and then I'm going to hopefully wrap this up so we can vote on the motion that's on the floor. Trustee Brown.
Trustee Harper, I was just going to ask if you and also the vice chair would consider maybe a method of being able to keep the trustees engaged. I only say that because for our constituent groups, particularly myself as faculty, Trustee Mondelez, with the students, if we don't have that information, if we're not engaged, and even from the emails that we're receiving from these stakeholders, we have no information to even be able to process some things through. So, if there's an opportunity for us to have more engagement and just to even understand what's going on behind the scenes, it would be helpful. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and do want to remind our board around the sunshine. So any updates come from administration.
But Madam Chair, we could easily do that. That could come.
Gibbons, hold on, you're not in the queue.
Excuse me. If you can allow me to recognize you, and if you could raise your hand, that would be great so that we can keep order in the meeting. Trustee Klatt.
Real quick, for Trustee Brown, I'd just like to remind him that please feel free to call staff, call the president, call the athletic director directly to get updates. Because again, we did not create the Sunshine Law or the SUS rules. It's a parameter that we have to operate within, and that would allow us to operate within for you to have those calls. Secondly, Trustee Lawson, I really want your motion. I really like your motion, but I just have an issue with the one piece of the committee, the search committee. And I know, again, because of the parameters that are set before us, we can't delay this motion a week or two to get more information around it. It has to be made now, I believe, Attorney Wallace, because now it's out there. And again, because of our restrictions that we have to go through with it. I'd like your motion, Trustee Lawson. I'm just, the piece of the committee concerns me, and it concerns me for this reason, because in athletics, the two revenue generating sports. This is not 1980. This is not 1960. Coaches are not as loyal as they were. And quite frankly, you're going to have a coach for 5 years. If that coach is winning, you have to look at starting your process again because they're going to leave you. And, to Trustee Perry's question, you have some coaches that they have a goal for themselves. And it's not to stay here at a mid-major, it's to move forward. We don't have control of that piece of it. So, yes, we do need to have a process in place. Yes, Trustee Lawson, I absolutely agree with your motion that we have to have some mechanism where the AD, we know that the AD is speaking to these stakeholder presidents. But once we add in that flavor of having to have a committee, that there's no way we're going to move swiftly with a coach. And the last point I want to say is, again, in the coaching world, these folks don't want their name out there. And once their name is out there, now it hurts them where they are, where they might go. And then they could be out of a job if they misguide that, if they misplay that because of Florida's rules. So we have to understand that we didn't create this, but this is where we are. And so it behooves us to be able to maneuver this to the best of our ability that protects the university. And how do we do that?
Chair Harper, can I provide a clarification point I was asking before, because I think it may not have gotten there.
Excuse me, just a moment.
Okay.
That's the collaboration that I talked about earlier. Collaborating with all of these organizations without having a process in the sunshine or interviews would maintain the integrity of the process that is being suggested, the engagement, and to maximize the pool of candidates. I see more hands. Trustee Gibbons, Trustee Brown, Trustee Stone, Lawson, and then Reed.
Two things. One is, Madam Chair, there's a motion on the floor. I'd really like to move towards voting on the motion after we hear from the rest of the trustees. And to Trustees Clatt's point, which I don't know where he gets this from, but I serve on another board. I think Trustee Washington serves on another board. Other folks serve on other boards. The administration, the chair is to direct the administration to send the Board of Trustees the information so that we can accurately vote on things. Has nothing to do with operating in the sunshine. I think that's what Trustee Brown is trying to get at. We are not operating in transparency as a board. We don't get the information, but you expect us to vote on certain things. And that can't happen. And so I would ask that we be transparent. Madam Chair, would you get the information out through the board members? We should not be finding things out from fraternity brothers, sorority sisters, and on the internet before we get it from the university. I would like the Trustee Brown to be able to respond to that, because I think that's what he's trying to say here.
If it's okay, Madam Chair, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm familiar with the Sunshine Law. I understand the laws that we have, and those laws do not prohibit us from receiving emails, phone calls from, stakeholders at the university. So that's what I was saying, because we had an opportunity to have those phone calls, and I'm saying that on the back end, like we're saying, to ask the group to vote upon something and to have completely been in the dark in the process, it does make it a little challenging to move that process forward. So specifically asking if, after information is received along the process as it's going along, if the trustees can be updated.
Absolutely. Let me just address that, since that question and those comments were directed toward me. As you know, as a board, our precedent is that administrators brief each trustee. Those briefings take place prior to meetings so that trustees have all of the information needed to conduct the business of the university and serving on this board. AD Sykes, she can speak for herself. However, to my knowledge, she engaged every board member throughout this process. So that is taking place. Perhaps not at the frequency that you may want, but that is our precedent, and that will continue to be the practice of this board to ensure that you are engaged. But you are always welcome to engage administrators so that you can carry out your respective duties. So, Trustee Stone, and if we can keep our comments brief, I want to be comprehensive, collaborative, but also move toward voting on the motion that is on the floor.
Yeah, and sorry, I had to pop off for a quick second, but can you guys please repeat the motion that we're considering?
Yes, the motion on the floor is to ask the president to establish a search committee to work with the AD and the search firm. And the search committee would have representation from the president of the NAA, the Rattler F Club, the 220 Club, the foundation, and SGA.
Got it. Thank you, Chair Harper. My 2 cents on this is pretty simple. I don't think we have the time for that. I think there's a bunch of dynamics around college sports, especially football, head coaches in today's market. My 2 cents, and again, I'm kind of echoing what everyone else is talking about. I'm reading more about this on the internet and ESPN than I'm getting directly from this group. And so obviously I want to fix that. But to me, it seems like the process was broken, of course, because we didn't get the information the way we needed to from who we needed to. But it really just sounds like we picked the wrong person versus, who the Alumni Association, who the players are looking for. And so I think, a search firm, all of that motion, I think is a bit outdated. But I think we need to really focus in on how do we move this season forward? How do we maintain our recruits and our standing, our winning success? And so for me, I would like to, figure out, have all parties come together and figure out who's the right person, and let's move forward there rather than pushing this out weeks at a time. I don't think we have that much time or the additional dollars that need to go into that process. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Trustee Stone. Lawson or Reed, I can't remember who was next.
I'll yield to Trustee Reed because I just want to try to bring the motion to a vote.
Same.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm actually will be brief as well. Just as it relates to where we are in the overall process, I think as was articulated, we really should leave this to the president based on what's been put forward as a motion to manage within his authority the complexities of being able to meet the requirements of the motion. And so as such, taking all of the other things that we've kind of characterized as being potential barriers to us being able to execute this, I think everyone has the same desire to continue to see FAMU be great. And that includes the associations that we're talking about collaborating with in the context of a committee. I think we move forward with that motion, and the president working with the AD and that and those respective committee members and collaborators have the responsibility to meet the objectives of the timeline that's been called out. I think that's how we should look at this from a go-forward standpoint.
Thank you. Trustee Lawson.
Yeah, I think Trustee Reed said it really well. I just implore us to think about the transparency that has been broken, and I implore us to think about a process to try and replace it. I think this is a process that can work to replace it, albeit arduous, albeit time-consuming. I just think now we should take the time to do this the way that anybody from the outside looking in would understand, see an objective, metric-based criteria where each of these candidates are scored. There's documentation that follows that, such that there's never a question of how and who received the role. I think involving the constituents that were mentioned is the right thing. And I'll yield because Trustee Harper, I know we need to bring this to a vote.
Yes, and at the end of the day,
yeah, I believe that there was one entity or one person missing from the proposed motion, which is the athletic faculty rep.
Thank you.
Okay. That addition would then clarify the motion that should be before the board.
Thank you, and I will repeat it again. I do want to clarify, however, that the ultimate decision-making authority for who is hired lies with the athletic director and the president.
That is correct.
No matter what the outcomes are of any committee.
Correct.
Okay. Trustee Perry, and then let's see if we can get this voted upon.
Call for the question.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no additional unreadiness, Attorney Barge Miles, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Brown,
In favor.
trustee Clint,
Are we voting on the original, the first amended, the second amended,
All right.
the third amended?
Let me repeat the motion and then we can start the vote again. Excuse me. The motion is to ask the president to establish a search committee working with Dawn-Sykes and the search firm to provide representation of the presidents of the following organizations: the NAA, the Rattler F Club, the 220 Club, the FAMU Foundation, Student Government Association, and the Athletic Faculty Rep. The one thing I want to say before we vote is that I don't think that this is, there's a lot of precedent for this, but let's continue with the vote. If you may, Attorney Barge Miles.
We also included the foundation president, and we did say because of the member, designated president being a member of this body board, that you might want to have to delegate that to someone else.
Okay, let me repeat it. The president will establish a search committee to work with Dawn-Sykes and a search firm with representation from the president of the NAA, the president of the Rattler F Club, the president of the 220 Club, the president of the FAMU Foundation, a delegate of Student Government Association, and the athletic faculty representative. Is that correct?
boosters, the boosters.
And the president of the FAMU Boosters, excuse me. All right, Attorney Barge Miles, can you please call the roll?
Trustee Brown,
In favor.
trustee Clint,
I absolutely don't like the committee. However, I don't want to be the person sitting out delaying this process because we need a coach and we have two in-house. So I will vote yes to move this forward.
trustee Crossman,
In favor.
trustee Figurs,
In favor.
trustee Gibbons,
In favor.
trustee Harper,
Oppose.
trustee Lawson,
In favor.
trustee Mondelus,
In favor.
trustee Perry,
Yes, in favor.
trustee Reed,
Aye.
trustee Stone,
Oppose.
was it opposed? Okay.
Yeah, no.
Trustee Washington,
Yes.
trustee White,
Yes.
the motion carries.
Thank you. The motion carries for the motion that was repeated many times and amended many times. So thank you for your engagement. Is there any additional business that needs to come before the board? Before that, I want to entertain questions and comments from President Robinson. I do see Trustee Crossman and Trustee Browns. Let's do you first, and then President Robinson. I'd like to hear from you as well.
Thank you. I just want to give a couple quick comments, if that's okay. First one is that FAMU is an outstanding university that I feel like is now in transition to go to another extreme level of success. As we go through that level of transition, we're going to have some pain points like this one. It's respecting the past and moving to the future. And so with that in mind, I just want to kind of affirm the group on, we're going to have confrontation, and that's not fun a lot of time. And we can do that confrontation with kindness. we can do both, and I'm going to advocate for both. And I really appreciate Trustee Gibbons' comments. Those were strong and somewhat hard to receive some of that. At the same time, I think it's good, and we need more of that in these kinds of environments. I also just want to affirm Athletic Director Sykes. I can't imagine this must have been a hard week for her. And I think some of the criticism she's received, was fair. And what she's received fair, she seems to have received and accepted. And she's taken coaching of herself. And I just affirm that. I think some of the criticism she's received social media has been totally inappropriate and not becoming of what we as FAMU need to be about. So I just wanted to affirm her for what I think she's done. There's a lot of good steps today in handling a difficult situation. And the final thing I just wanted to say this is that I promote FAMU on social media almost every day. And if you follow me in any way, what you'll note, it's 100% positive. It's 100% positive. I don't put anything out there negative. And I would really encourage all of us to be mindful of that. And if somebody, for some reason, feels like they need to put something negative out about our fine university, well, why don't they think about putting 10 more positive things out before they put a negative? Or if you see somebody, put something negative, don't repeat it, don't retweet it, don't like it, don't comment on it. Let's really try to build a culture of sharing vast positive stories that people are searching about FAMU. They need to see all the true positive stories, which far outweigh anything that's negative. I don't say that to diminish hard conversation and state that's important. I just think we need to be mindful about the public view that we're sending out. That's all I wanted to share.
Thank you so much, Trustee Crossman. Trustee Brown.
Yeah, I just want to concisely make sure that the right message is being sent in terms of what some of the comments were from the trustees. I'll speak for myself. In this process, I don't consider getting the information at the very end of the process being included. So to say that concisely, when I say included, I mean that as one of the trustees said, there are more things that were in other places than items that we received. And so if there's a method of communication where we can be called at the end of the process, then it could be a method where we start that communication a little earlier. So that was my point I want to make sure that we make.
Thank you so much, Trustee Brown. Trustee White.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things I want to share is as we have gone through this process, it has become clear to me that there needs to be more communication from the administration. So President Robinson, I implore you to please, make sure that either yourself or your team is including us on communications. Going back to a few comments that the trustees mentioned, I actually found out about this, by somebody calling me at 7 a.m. in the morning. And then the next thing I Googled it and it was literally articles already released. So as we are finding out information, please let us know. I know it's not our job to hire or fire. However, it is our job to be a part of the governance side. And so especially as we look at the financial and fiscal health of athletics and how important it is to this great university, we need to make sure that if we are bringing in a new coach, what is that fiscal impact? How many people are they bringing on? So there is a lot of different considerations that we have when those things are done. And so it is very important for that to happen. And also, Chair Harper, I do know that this was a hard time, for you, especially being so new in the role. But I do implore you to also understand that you are one of 13, and it's important that we all are included on, understanding what's going on. I do respect you as a chair, and that's why we hired you and we voted you as a leader. But also, we need you to understand that as we're being called, we all getting the same emails. Thank you to whoever put my email address out there, all on the Facebook and all on social media. But we're all getting the same thing, so we're all in this together. And so I just implore everyone to make sure that we're all communicating even more. Thank you, Chair.
Absolutely. We certainly are all in this together. Trustee Washington and then Trustee Mondelez and then Stone.
Thank you, Chair Harper, and again, applaud you on the role that you have played in dealing with this situation. I've been listening to a lot of the conversation from the trustees, and And I know, Chair, that you made the decision to put athletics back under budget and finance, but given the fervor of conversation and around sort of this decision and some of the conversations and questions we have around the budget, I would implore you to think about, whether or not this should be its own committee, especially as we look to making sure we balance the budget and other concerns for the longevity of the organization, because it's going to be difficult, if we can't make a decision in a couple of hours to fit this level of conversation into our regularly scheduled meetings.
Thank you. And just to clarify, should what be its own committee?
Athletics.
Okay.
Like us bringing back the special committee.
Okay. Thank you for that comment. Trustee Mondelez and then Trustee Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do want to greet everybody else on this call. I just wanted to give the perspective of students really quickly. I don't want to hold anybody long. I do want to discuss the issue that I find with, I do want to just reiterate everything that Trustee Brown have already said about being left out of the conversation. And I see this as a continuous issue when it comes to student representatives, rather that's a student trustee or the FAMU football players. I think we need to always remember who we're serving. At the end of the day, the university is serving students. That's why we're all here, is to make their lives better, right? And I think that it was very disheartening for football players to have to come to me and explain how they felt ignored when it came to the process, and how their voices were continuously left out. And I really hope that moving forward, this will no longer be an issue, and that I hope by me speaking out now, that people are aware of that. And I think that we are going to the correct direction of this by having the search committee and having a student representative. And I do hope when it comes time for picking whoever is the head coach, that we do take heed of what the football players are saying as well, and as well as whoever is the student representative on the search committee. But those are my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trustee Mondelez. Trustee Stone.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, with this whole thing, I think let's not also forget just the human side of this, right? We have great leaders at the helm of Florida A&M University with Dr. Robinson. We have so many successes over the last few years since I've been on the board, right? And so what I dislike is how certain mistakes or just the way things play out creates this narrative and is heightened more than a lot of our wins. And guys, we have so many wins. So the human side I'm saying is things play out not always the right way. People make mistakes. People will go about things differently. And sometimes just having that conversation to say next time, or as we go forward, make sure these parties are all included and have that conversation. Sometimes that's good enough, guys. We have a great leadership team. There still needs to be trust there. So creating all of these extra processes all the time, sometimes that hurts FAMU and makes us less competitive. So it's a thin line. It's something that we all have to balance. But I would just say, look at the body of evidence with the team that we have in place, with the leadership we have in place. There's snafus, but we can always work past them. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt sometimes to get there. That's all.
Thank you so much, Trustee Stone. I do want to say before I turn it over to the president that I appreciate the conversation. The theme that I'm hearing all together is really around collaboration and timely communication. And that is a very, very valid principle and a value that I certainly espouse. It wasn't anticipated that in the midst of Sykes briefing this board, that information would be shared on social media. That was not the plan. And so we find ourselves where we are. Nelson Mandela says, I never lose. I either win or I learn. And I know that Rattlers and FAMU will continue to win, and we will also learn from this situation. So with that, President, I'll turn it over to you for any comments that you may have.
Well, thank you, Chair Hopper, and members of the board for how you handled today's meeting. And I hope the headline is around dictate that people in social media and the media in general kind of don't take that. But to me, I recommend you for the personal way to handle this. I mean, to a decision as to how you want me to handle this matter moving forward. I can't tell you how much I do appreciate that. It is unfortunate. I just emphasize the point you just made. We all have to make sure that we put family first, and that I think in the end, we're never going to all be satisfied with who gets elected in this process or who's in any position at the family. I'm sure that everybody came that around this table, from the board and constituents, I get multiple nominees for each and every one of the positions, but I do think overall we made some very, very good decisions in terms of people who sit around this table every Tuesday morning planning for family's future. And that definitely includes AD Tiffany Dawn-Sykes. I'm really excited about her being here now. As I was a year ago, I want everybody to know that I do support her as we move forward in the process. I do want to say though, while all of this is going on, we're missing some of the light that's shining on FAMU. For example, just yesterday at the MLK celebration at Cascade Park, right? Both ADs from FAMU and FSU were there to receive proclamations from the mayor of the city of Tallahassee on the great work that our teams have done in various sports in terms of championships, and most notably the economic impacts that it's having here on the city of Tallahassee and Gwinnett County. And I think we need to double down on those stories. We need to tweet those things out, the kind of things that tell the real purpose and impact of this institution that's undebatable, right? We can debate about who the next coach is, but by and large, this institution has been a mainstay of this community, the HBCU community, higher education community. And I think that if we continue to work together as a team, we will continue to move up that ladder. So I just want to thank you first for having the confidence in me to lead this institution. I guarantee you all of my decisions will be made based on what I think is in the best interest of Fulton and University. I want to thank again all those affinity groups. I called them all out in my, thank you statement prior to any of this happening in terms of monies that were raised rather rapidly to support things that we were doing to try to retain Coach Simmons. And we got to a point where we were able to match, in fact, and see the offer that we got. I just want to thank you all for that. And I know with that kind of support, right, we can overcome even this recurring budget issue in athletics. And so we're going to get you that report next week as to where we are. We see a way to getting into the black. And as you know, Trustee Lawson, that every year, with the exception of 1 or 2, where we had CARES Act monies or Earth monies or ERISA monies, we were working through trying to get there each and every year. We're going to continue to do that here until we get to a point where we have enough money, enough contributions from all of those who love us, who allow us to be in a totally different place financially. Until then, we're going to continue to work in the way that we have. And I want to thank all of you who have supported this program, this institution over the years. It has made a huge difference in the lives of our students and communities that we serve. So with that, Chair Harper, thank you very much. And thank you for calling this meeting to give us some direction as to how we will move forward.
Thank you so much, President Robinson. I do not see any other hands. I think all of the comments have been made. It's been a robust meeting, trustees and peers. I appreciate you carving out this time. Thank you for your leadership, President Robinson and AD Sykes. And there being no other business, I call this meeting adjourned. Have a good afternoon.
All right. Well, that was quite the meeting, huh? Started at 1 p.m. Eastern time. It is 2:43 Eastern. We're just wrapping up. Man, Tolly Carr, along with Stephen J. Gaither. We had a little bit of everything. That was something. Steve, I'm going to start with you. We're going to kick it over to Vaughn Wilson in a moment, but your 60-second version of key takeaways.
Man, I just, went from laughing to scratching my head to beating up against the table. There was just so much going on there, so many emotions. The big takeaway was that FAMU does not have a coach as of right now. The search process, Dawn-Sykes has decided that she wants to do a search firm with some input from some of the stakeholders. And then she and President Robinson would make the final decision. The stakeholders heard that, the Board of Trustees heard that today, and they passed a motion that there should be a committee and that there should have stakeholders from pretty much everybody except for the Marching 100 on who's going to be the next head coach. So still going, I guess we picked the right school for the belt for FAMU because there's a battle royale now, and you didn't have to pay per view. So.
They are the champions of Board of Trustees meeting as far as today went.
Off the ropes.
Let's send a big thank you to Vaughn Wilson. Vaughn had to literally carry the broadcast. Vaughn, we had to break it down to transistor AM radio to keep the feed going by any means necessary. Vaughn X down in Tallahassee, Florida. We got kicked out of the Zoom. There was a 500-member limit. Vaughn has already spoke his piece about that. Vaughn, we'd love to hear from you. We thought maybe we would get a recommendation for a coach today. Instead, we get a recommendation for a search committee. Your quick takeaway from everything we heard in what amounted to a good hour and 45 minutes of conversation today.
Well, the first thing is FAMU failed from the beginning, from the go. To have a limit of 500 people on a meeting that was this important to so many people, that's just a failure and an unforgivable failure. I mean, it just does not make sense. As a profession, I run a media company, and I talk with people before we have broadcasts. And we make that estimate. But there are situations where I've been with people and they've got overwhelmed, and it takes literally 2 to 3 minutes to upgrade your service on Zoom so that you may go above the 500 person limit. So coming from a professional in that area, that was a complete failure by FAMU. Let's start there. I apologize to everybody who wanted to listen in. We thank you for listening to what we were able to give you access to, but that's just completely unforgivable. And we need to address that with the university. Okay, now I can finally get to the meeting.
Full pause. Pause. Okay, continue.
I've been, fortunately for me, my dad owned the local black newspaper here, so I've been going to FAMU Board of Trustees meetings since a youngster. I used to go and take photos from him. I'm not surprised, even on this special meeting, the way that it went. What was the overwhelming takeaway for me was that, yes, the FAMU alumni and stakeholders who had concerns, they got to the trustees. And it made the trustees react the way that they reacted today. And, they expressed frustration with the number of contacts that people had made with them, but that really shows you how important this was to the stakeholders. Trustee Lawson, he was the chairman of the FAMU Board of Trustees for a long time. He is the one who made the motion that there be a committee that does not impede the process of Dawn-Sykes and the search firm to do their work, but basically just to say that they're consulted and at least they're considered. I think that was the big problem in this from the beginning. One of the trustees called it a failure, and that the reason, I think it was Gibbons, he was very, very prophetic in that he knows why we got here today. It's because even he, as a trustee, was not communicated with. And so he understands, because while he wasn't communicated with from the athletic director or the president, the alumni and stakeholders, they actually got to him. So that is absolutely obvious from this meeting. Dawn-Sykes is taking another approach. They're going back to the drawing board. I I agree with Trustee Clyett that says, hey, we got our great coach from a coach just being selected by an athletic director, which happens sometime. But because of the failure of the process that we've had so far, we've got to take a different approach.
Vaughn, let me jump in there real quick and ask you this. For Coach Colsey, does it appear at all, would he have any less, more, same hope today that he has a shot at this job with looks like we're leaning towards a search committee?
One thing I can say about Coach Colsey is he's dedicated to the players, and they love him for that, and he's going to continue. There's nothing in my mind that I see that will stop Coach Colsey from continuing to work the players out, push them to go to class, push them to work out and get ready for a spring, which, really the fall football season starts right now. Your preparation starts in January. It doesn't start in August when all the players come back, or July when all the players come back. It starts now. So the success of the Rattlers in 2024, they're starting out behind where they were last year, all things considered. I think Coach Colsey has no intention, because he could have left already. I think he has no intention of leaving a situation where he truly believes he has the opportunity to resubmit a championship team. I can't say rebuild, because, you're replacing a coach, but the core of that team, Jalen Goss, Kendall Bowler, we start talking about those players, Junior Mirotovic, Anthony Dunn Jr., the kicking team, which is just amazing. You have the core of a great team. So it would just be to reload it and try to emulate some of the things that were done last year.
All right,
I think that's what the players want. And I think the alumni want them to have the opportunity to emulate last year as much as possible.
Okay, he's in the 3 box with us, but he's just right here to my right. Stephen, let's see if I look at you. Yeah, I'm looking at you in the box too.
That works.
What do you think? Do you think is Tiffany Dawn-Sykes, is she dying on a hill here, or is she just doing her job? Where we are now with the decisions and the timeline and everything that we have seen play out, how would you surmise kind of her position on suggesting the search firm?
I think it's a compromise. Obviously she had her candidate, Coach Gibbs, who, just signed up with Fort Valley State. And, if you listen to it, she did make some apologies for, maybe some missteps that she had. And I think Board of Trustee Crossman made some really great commentary on that. But she made some statements about some things that she could have done better, and she took some of that criticism, and she is kind of meeting them in the middle ground. She had her candidate; he's no longer available, so her recommendation was a search firm that will again vet and list candidates. Then she and President Robinson will confer with the stakeholders, and then ultimately the decision will rest with them. She talked about how the process, and she gave them a little bit of inference as well last time what the process was as far as them, her submitting the candidates that she thought was great. And she did say that President Robinson interviewed with him as well. She did mention that one other, I think a board member got a copy as well. And then all of a sudden, it's out in the open who the candidate is. It's everywhere. And so I think, her process going forward, she did mention that, she was concerned about, making sure that their pool of candidates that are going forward will be as wide as possible. And she says that, the search committee may make that pool smaller, because now people are worried about, if they'll be exposed for interviewing, and they may not even get the job. I mean, we saw with the suggestion of Shawn Gibbs getting the job happen, he was everywhere. So,
but doesn't that usually means you get a raise, right? I don't want to say regular college football. That sounds terrible. Don't say that, right, Tolly? In other, Power 5. But your name goes out there. Next thing you know, you get a raise. Like, how many people got a raise based on the Alabama, consideration? Like, everybody. I mean, they gave who is that? A guy that really, I was like, they gave him a raise. Like,
right.
I would leak my own name if I thought I could get a raise.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there is that, but I mean, even with Coach Gibbs,
did he get a raise?
he got a new deal. He did get a new deal. So, but I think
me from spilling my own beans.
even with that, it is even with that, we talked last week about how he had some recruits that were going to be coming, and so if you don't get the job again, it's adding to that instability of will he, won't he. So I think it's pretty clear that Dawn-Sykes wants to make sure that people are involved, but I think she ultimately wants this to be her hire and make what she thinks is the long-term hire for everyone. And I know everybody says Colsey, but maybe she just doesn't see him as a long-term head coach. I don't know. Can't speak for them.
I would say not, because she certainly could have just hired him. I don't think.
And she does want the pool to be wide. So, right. And I think the people at FAMU want it to be very narrow. So here we are. But they wanted their say. They're going to get their say some way, somehow. But it still will be on Dawn-Sykes and President Robinson, the ultimate decision. So,
Vaughn, you know all things Florida. There was a lot of conversation about sunshine, the sunshine laws. You have explained that here on this platform before, but in case people, who don't live in Florida were kind of catching up to it, what is it about the sunshine laws that could potentially expose candidates based upon how you go about the search?
Well, I got to say this because Trustee Clyett came right back and said, no, that's not true, because the Florida government 2 years ago enacted a measure that would protect those names of hirings in high profile. So the sunshine law, which makes everything be in the open, 2 years ago they made a state amendment that would keep high profile hires secured for that simple fact. So that statement actually was not true, and that's why Trustee Clyett came back behind and said, I don't agree with that comment. It was 2 years ago it was passed in the Florida legislature. Yes, I keep up with all that kind of stuff. And I'm the old guy, so informative. My daddy always said, say it to make sure everyone's familiar. So I just want to run down the vote. Trustee Brown voted yes on the amendment. Trustee Clyett voted yes. Trustee Crossman voted yes. Trustee Figures voted yes. Trustee Gibbons voted yes. Chairwoman Kristen Harper voted no. Trustee Lawson, yes. Trustee Mondelez, who is the SGA president, voted yes. Trustee Perry voted yes. Trustee Reed voted yes. Trustee Stone voted no. Trustee Washington voted yes. And Trustee White voted yes. The interesting thing about that vote as well is the comments afterwards, and I typed them out as quick as I could while broadcasting the
radio broadcast, yeah.
But one thing that we saw over and over, and I'm hoping that Sykes learned, everyone on there, every single person just about, except for the chair president, complained about the communication and them being in the dark about it, what was going on. I do understand that as a person responsible for making a hire, you want to keep things close to the chest, but just as one of the trustees, and I think it may have been Crossman, I don't want to get it wrong, but he mentioned that, a football coach, hiring a football coach is something that people are more interested in than, I hate to say it, but vice presidents on campus. A football coach is a very high profile that draws a lot of energy. So you can't treat it like you did with hiring a basketball coach or a bowling coach. It's a totally different atmosphere. 99% of the Rattlers probably cannot name the bowling coach.
I can't.
and many others may not be able to name our very good women's basketball coach who is bringing the program back. But it's just the reality of the monster that football is. It has to be treated differently. And one thing that Lawson stated by trying to get these people in the committee, Lawson was the chairman for years. He understands the value of having your constituents on board. Why are FAMU's constituents different than any other, school's constituents? Because of the amount of support. You heard the Rattler Refs say they donate $50,000 a year. The Rattler Boosters, the football coach can only make $200,000 a year. All over that has to be given by support organizations. So these support organizations, you can't go asking for money in one breath and then not tell them what you're going to do in another breath. I think that is a opportunity for Sykes to grow. I feel for her because it's a little different. It's a little different at FAMU than it is at other organizations. The trustee that was talking about how Alabama's.
You sounded like you were from Alabama the way you just said.
I know Alabama. Yeah. But when that trustee talked about how Alabama went about filling that spot, it was obvious that that person went to the boosters and the stakeholders. Now, he didn't go to everybody, but he went to the big money people. Well, at FAMU, the big money people is a conglomerate. It's a conglomerate of the Rattler Boosters, the 220 Quarterback Club, the Rattler F, and these groups that they mentioned. That is why you can't exclude the people that you're going to need to fund what you're going to do.
Well, Vaughn, let me ask you this, and it's for clarification. How big, all right, and everything is an economy of scale, right? So, look, the FAMU boosters, on average, aren't giving what the Alabama and Georgia boosters are giving. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that. Like, the money is big, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just is what it is. So when you come down the scale and you look at FAMU, like how many people, how big is the group, or who should have input based upon like, hey, there are real dollars in our economy, our scaled economy here at FAMU being given? Because I've seen some people ask like, okay, the alumni raised, $150,000, and that is great, and I'm not trying to poo-poo that at all. But is that like, hey, I got input money, or is that just like I did my part? Like, how big of a group do you think we're really looking at that should really, really have some input here?
From what I can tell, and I'm just making an educated guess, I would say 50% of the money that comes in, besides what is ticket sales and even matching up with the endorsements and things like that come in, comes from those affinity groups. You're talking about the FAMU Foundation, the National Rattler F, the Rattler Boosters. I'm going to forget somebody, the 220 Quarterback Club. These groups are the fundraisers. This is where, for example, and I don't know what the number is this year, but last year, Coach Willie Simmons went on what they call a strike tour in the summer, and that's organized by the FAMU National Alumni Association, where he hits about 8 cities. Well, they raised $550,000 just on that tour. So that is fostered and handled by the National Alumni Association, where they get with the chapters and say, hey, we've got to host a fundraiser in your town and we need people to bring money. And so to the tune, FAMU's, all those groups together cannot dollar amount wise compared to the University of Alabama. But if you talk about percentage of what goes into athletic, it will dwarf what athletics boosters come up with at Alabama, because Alabama makes a lot of money from their TV deals, from their conference, from things of that nature, from their advertising. FAMU does not make a lot of money from their advertisers. It's fallen off over the past few years. I've seen spaces where we used to have ads, we don't have ads. Let's just be realistic. And to me, my red light, my light bulb that went over my head today from the meeting was them to continue to talk about the shortfall in athletics. So in one sense, you're saying athletics is going to be short. If athletics is going to be short in the budget this year, where are they going to get that money? I want either you or Steven to answer me. Where are they going to do?
How much did the alumni raise?
Huh?
How much did the alumni raise? It sounded like they raised enough to cover your search firm, because we did some quick research, and I could be off, and one of the trustees said something to the effect that he could get a discount on the search firm. But
can they copy off somebody else's search?
that was actually the president's.
Okay. We couldn't see faces, so
yeah.
But it looks like somewhere in the neighborhood of like $75,000, because you're looking at 30%, roughly 25 to 30% of the first year salary of the person that they select. That payment would go but roughly $75,000. I would ask. Let me give Steven some more time here. Steve, do you like that idea of a search firm based upon, hey, this is going to cost money, and also, hey, we don't have as much money as we need. There's a little shortfall in athletics.
I think, Tolly, it's the best middle ground that you could hope for at this point. Again, Dawn-Sykes and President Robinson, they both signed off on Gibbs, and it was moving along. And, they got the pushback from the constituents who, wanted to have their voice heard, and they did. We actually heard from the NAA president, and, I was waiting to hear for him to say something about the fact that they presented that Dawn-Sykes did not thank the NAA, which proved to be inaccurate based off an email. And so I think there's so much contention at this point. I think a search firm coming through, getting names, vetting names, then present these to the stakeholders. Hey, these are the people that we're considering. Let them have their voice heard. But again, the ultimate decision will lie with Dawn-Sykes to be signed on President Robinson. And it's clear that he trusts Dawn-Sykes to make this decision. He hired her, and what anybody would want from their boss is the chance to do the job that you were hired to do. And so, it may not be popular, but so far he stood by her decisions and signed off on them. So it'll be interesting to see if that changes moving forward and what type of friction that causes down there.
And Vaughn, it is factual to say that the university, on top of Willie Simmons' base salary, they still owe him. He hit some benchmarks this year, so he has a bonus that needs to get paid out, right?
Willie Simmons is owed a good bit of money. I don't have his contract in front of me, but I would say it's $100,000 or more bonus money that he earned this year. You got the winning the conference championship, winning the Florida Classic, winning the Celebration Bowl, being coach of the year. All of those things were incentives in his contract. So he is owed a significant amount of money for his success this season.
Steve, what are they talking about in the comments? Thank you so much for you guys that hung out with us. You basically had a graphic on your screen, and you were just following it like it was radio for over an hour and a half. What has the conversation been like in the chat?
Well, we're just talking about, you're hearing a lot about President Robinson and, him. Again, as I said, he signed off on everything so far. Laura Wilson says it's her hire, and she's going to hire who she wants, and she doesn't care what anyone else thinks. She doesn't care if she deep sixes this staff or team zero. It's all about her. Good luck with that. Common Sense says, good luck. He waves up a white flag. He's been in support of Dawn-Sykes having the hire. Jay says she still gets the final say-so along with President Robinson, in a waste of time and money. I'm guessing that's the search firm process there.
And we had some polls in there too. We had, is the search committee too much? We had 160 people vote so far. Right now, 63% of the voters out there say it is too much. 37% agree with the search committee.
And 67% earlier said that they need to go ahead and make the hire now. It's too late. It's too late to kick the can down the road.
Vaughn, you spoke last week here, and you said that, hey, if they don't make a decision until National Signing Day, they'll still be okay. Since you kind of talked about that timeline and whether or not it would suffice, you've lost your recruiting coordinator. Coach Devin Rispress is in Colorado and seems to be enjoying himself there with Coach Prime. Now you're talking about a search committee and wanting to have this done by National Signing Day, which is the second one of the season, and it's about 3 weeks away. Do you still feel okay if a search committee comes in and you take the next 3 weeks to find a permanent replacement for Willie Simmons?
My personal feeling and preference and a lot of the stakeholders is what Trustee Clyett said. You have two coaches on staff. He wasn't shy about saying that, and I still feel the best option now, especially now that these new roadblocks, I call them roadblocks because it's going to be so much more involvement. to be honest, Dawn-Sykes has basketball going, track going. The spring is that sport where baseball and softball are about to kick up. There are other things. This needs to get in the rearview mirror so that the team can get ready for the spring. And so with me feeling that it needs to be done as quickly as possible, the process that put in place is not going to allow it to be quick. It certainly will not be. I mean, how do you get all those stakeholders together? And then there's the false narrative that those people are, all they're going to do is be heard. At the end of the day, AD Sykes and President Robinson are going to make the decision that they're going to put forward to the board. So it's almost like smoke and mirrors, or it's just done to make some people feel good. But at the end of the day, one thing that I saw troubling, and one thing that I saw, and I applaud Dr. Robinson for this, he tried to make it seem that the search firm should talk to those constituents. Me personally, I think that's actually a better way. Talk to the constituents, listen to them, and then go do what you got to do. Putting it in some kind of approval process along the way or something like that it never works out. It just doesn't. It also puts AD Sykes in a very compromising position to put her to have to go back and be, directly in front of those people where we know there's contention there, unfortunately. We heard some of them speaking in the public comment section, and they were very direct at what they say. So Dr. Robinson was very smart into suggesting, and which I personally thought would have been a better suggestion, to have the search firm to go talk with these constituents. What do you want in a person? And then do your search. I think that's the normal way of talking to constituents and getting them involved, and then go from there.
I don't know what the data might suggest, like how many search firms have come back and ended up on an internal candidate. And I'm no master business person, but what we do here at HBCU Game Day is a business. We have decisions that we have to make that have financial impact, that impact other people. I'll just throw this up, Steve. I'll ask you first. Does it, or I don't want to lead the witness here. Does a search committee also bring along some pressure that you do hire from outside? Because if you just come back to an internal candidate after a search committee, it's like, to me, it kind of looks like, well, you couldn't see that he was the best choice. Like, you needed us to tell us that, and he was there with you the whole time, and you spent $75,000 minus the discount, whatever, just to hire somebody that was already here. I feel like the search committee does not work in favor of anybody internally. It might, you think justice is blind, a search committee might be blind, but I don't know. I feel a little pressure there.
Yeah, I think, again, as we said earlier, I think, she talked about the pool of candidates not being, she didn't want it to be narrowed based off of, what might get out there. So that word narrowed means that she's casting a wide net, a wide scope, just off the words that she used. So again, the internal candidates, they may have a shot at the job, but I mean, at this point, it's pretty clear, they're right there in the backyard. That could have, if that was going to be the move, that probably would have been the move. So it looks like it's still going to be, much to the chagrin of a lot of people, somebody outside of that current locker room. And making a coaching decision is tough. It always is you hope is a multi-year thing. You hope it's not a one-year thing. And so, it looks like AD Sykes is trying to come to a conclusion where she can get the best candidate that's going to serve FAMU for years going forward. Because we all know one good or bad coach and one good bad coaching decision can set you back a long way. So, it's obvious that she's trying to really make sure that she goes as wide as she can.
Vaughn, at the very beginning of the Board of Trustees meeting today, during the public comments, we heard from some of the football players, and then there was a whole lot of discussion after that. But trying to kind of circle that back to the top, what did you think of what the players had to say in the public comments today?
The players have been 100% consistent from day one. They have voiced concern and support for Cozy. Last week when I saw them at the celebration, they were rallied around him. They were happy. they were following the lead from him. He was able to lead a very disgruntled group of guys to actually show up to a celebration in mass, act respectable, and partake in this celebration. That in itself shows a very good ability to lead, because the team's morale is fractured at this point. They cannot believe they're here less than a month after, exactly a month ago. Today's the 16th. Exactly 1 month ago, this team was standing on the podium. No, they were coming back in the second half right now. But exactly a month ago today, about an hour from now, they were standing at the center of Mercedes-Benz Stadium with confetti falling, holding up the trophy that they coveted so much, the Celebration Bowl trophy. How much a month makes. And now they're sitting up here confused, disappointed, concerned, and feeling like they haven't been heard. And it's very sad to see that as a Rattler, especially as a former football player. It's sad to see that, because whatever happens to them, I feel like it happens to me. I can feel it, that how I would be if I was in that position. There were some comments and Trustee Mondelez, who actually is the SGA president, she said the issue from student government is she feels like the players are complaining about not being a part of the process, and she implored them to at least take some input from the players, because at the end of the day, we all know, it's not 1980. The transfer portal, whenever it opens back up, they'd be free to go. But also like I said, some of the most poignant statements came from Trustee Crossman. And this is where I am at this very moment, as I look in the comments and I see people from the outside saying this is the most ridiculous crap show I've ever seen. I completely understand that, because that is exactly what it looks like. And Crossman says, he's talking about the image of FAMU, that he tries to portray positive things going on at FAMU. And if it happens for him to put something out that doesn't seem is less than glamorous, he makes sure to put 10 things out that are glamorous, as he supports FAMU. As an alum, and with the skirt being pulled up with this process, it does hurt. It's painful to watch. It's like nothing should be this difficult, this hard, shouldn't take this long. It's why alumni are anxious, and the longer they wait, the more their anger comes out, and they just start attacking everything around the process.
Like stepping on a rattler.
They want.
The grass has been cut.
They are spoiled. They're spoiled now, and they want nothing to keep them from getting back to Atlanta in 2024.
Let me ask Stephen this. He does not have any snake skin in the game, being a non-FAMU alum. I think if Tiffany Dawn-Sykes had hired, and she still could, Colsey, or she goes in-house, that hire is not really, she's not hitching everything, all of her chips to that hire, because there's a lot of public sentiment. There's precedents that, you have a winning team, your coach leaves, you just stay in-house. And if that didn't work out, I don't think people would have been like, oh my God, what was she doing? Promoting from within. But if she does not go that route and she goes externally, I really think, I know that hire is going to be hitched to her, but I don't want to paint the picture that everything is doom and gloom here because of the emotions that you have felt. Steve, there's still a possibility she could hire someone that's not on the staff. It could be a home run hire. They could win the championship again. Would all be forgiven, forgotten, and it just be, lots of grass and flowers on the highest of Seven Hills a year from now.
I mean, they say winning cures all, but I think, obviously this year, coming off the Celebration Bowl, 12-1 record, so much that's there. I think anything short of probably a SWAC title and another return to a Celebration Bowl will probably draw the ire of FAMU fans because they will have that great thing in your back pocket of what could have been. You know, whether or not it would have actually happened, we wouldn't know. So I think you know, and someone in her position, I think you're going to be judged either way it goes, because if they go out there and lose, you know, then there'll be the silent group of alumni who says, well, you know, I thought we should have done a search the whole time. So, you know, right now everybody's kind of made it clear to who AD Sykes, to who they think that she should hire. But clearly she's sticking true to, you know, the process. I know someone mentioned that she hired previous coaches, and obviously we know football, especially at FAMU, is going to be a totally different animal. But I think she's sticking to the process, and you know, again, you know, now she's got a chance to let those folks have their voices heard. And I think too, you know, when we talk about having voices heard and the student athletes and stuff, I understand that she has met with student athletes. And, you know, when you talk about your voice being heard, there's so many ways that could happen, that your voice could be heard. It just might not be that you get the hire that you want. And it's like, it's almost like if she doesn't hire who they want, then their voice wasn't heard. And I don't know that that's true.
All right, Vaughn, you're old school like me. I grew up in North Carolina, Tobacco Road, ACC basketball. We were, you know, they just injected it into our baby formula. We had no choice but to love it and follow it. While Tiffany Dawn-Sykes is not a coach, she's in a high-profile position here in athletics. They wanted to run Dean Smith out of town in Chapel Hill his first year. Coach K was not winning championships his first year. They were ready to get rid of him. We have seen these kind of redemption stories in sports where things don't go smoothly or they get a little rocky early on. Fans do what fans do. They act fanatical, but, you know, some championships, you know, and everyone forgets all of that. If having the pulse of the FAMU community, no matter who gets the job, if we get some wins and some dubs and run it back next year, everything smooth, everything good?
I can't even make that prediction. Fortunately for me, I was able to develop a skill of ignoring so many things that had happened in the past when it comes to game day, when it comes to games, that I really can't judge what someone else, because I really had to train myself. I keep saying this, I had to endure and do everything that I normally do for a team that was 1-10 not too long ago. And I had to continue with that professionalism day after day. Nobody wants to do that again, but, you know, I had to train myself to be, not to get too high or to get too low, but to just maintain. So I can't speak to what anyone else would say. I just know that there are some bonds that need to be broken. AD Sykes needs to somehow, if she wants to stay at FAMU, she needs to somehow have a coming back together with alumni, boosters, and they can't continue to operate in silos and continue to help FAMU. I would almost say, you know, I would almost try to invite AD Sykes to dinner and bring Curtis Johnson from the NAA and bring Eddie Jackson from the 220 Quarterback Club and Selvin Cobb from the Boosters and Curtis Taylor from the National Rattler F Club. And let's sit down in a restaurant, in a back room, hash it out and say, hey, we got to leave. No matter what happens in here, we got to leave here. And we all have to be willing to do whatever's best to move FAMU forward. I think that needs to happen sooner than later. Because you can't operate with the Boosters over here operating in the silo and the National Rattler F over here. These things have to work together in order for it to be successful. That's what we saw over the last 6 years. Those groups coming together, being on the same page with the athletic directors who gave vision, on point with the head coach who gave vision, on point with the president who gave vision, and Lord, let me not forget the FAMU Foundation for what they've done financially. So moving forward, FAMU is going to have to, there has to be a coming together of AD Sykes and those people. It will not work if she continues to just go on and do her thing and these affinity groups are not lockstep with her and her vision and what needs to happen at FAMU athletics.
It's interesting. The power. You kind of see these struggles for power play out in real time, and I don't want to come off like I'm trying to mansplain something here, but through my career of whatever I've done in life, at almost 50 years old, Lord willing, if I can make it to October, keep my hair up here, we'll see half a century. But when I come into a place, I always kind of scope out like what I want my evil master plan to be at that particular job or that particular opportunity, and realize the people that I need to win over, the people who I need to gain trust from, the people that I need to learn how to manipulate. Like it's all part of the game, right? If not that Tiffany Dawn-Sykes is asking me for any advice at all, she's become an athletic director without my help. Thus far, I think she can continue to do that. But Vaughn, I do agree it would probably go a long way with a little bit of that kind of come to Jesus meeting. And you just gotta build those connections. I think it's so hard when, especially such a high profile hire like this out of the gate. And when the communication, if that was the case or whatever, kind of misfired between all the stakeholders there. Steve, I'll kind of ask your opinion. Like, man, you got to build that community, even if, and one of the trustees, talked about it, that she has learned some lessons along the way and has taken constructive criticism. And I think you can do all that without being ugly, like the commissioner said. But I think this job is as much political as it is administrative. And those are just kind of the rules and the parameters that you have to survive and thrive in to get whatever it is that you want out of that position.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to, I think there definitely needs to come together, because right now I don't know how this situation can continue to work long term. I think, again, I'll go back to this. Again, we've acknowledged that, there's some things that that AD Sykes could have done better communication-wise. She acknowledged that in her own speech. Again, I would like to hear, we know the NAA had their no confidence vote last week, and one of the facts that they presented, again, because we need to make sure that this is out there, one of the facts they presented was that she did not thank the NAA, and an email came out that proved that that was not correct, and it was sent to the NAA. So, a lot of things have been said back and forth and in public, and I think those things has to be amending offenses. I was listening to that that NAA meeting last week, the e-board meeting, and I think it was a past president. I think her last name was Collins. I may not be correct in that, because the motion was that she hadn't communicated with any stakeholders and things like that. And I think past president, and again I believe it's Collins, did indicate that there really hadn't been in her eyes, there hadn't been the proper reach out after the request for the money. So it's got to go both ways. I think at FAMU, we've seen that there's been a revolving door of ADs over the past decade, 2 decades. And so I don't know if the feeling is that ADs are replaceable, but I would like to see this work, going forward. And I think it's going to take both parties. And I don't think that, Tiffany Dawn-Sykes has shown that she's anything but willing to try to do that moving forward. So hopefully it can happen in earnest, and some fences will need to be mended both ways, I think, before they can have that relationship that they need.
And Vaughn, one of the struggles of being in a high-profile position, and we see this throughout society, is this right here, right? Like, for just the everyday Joe, you can be transparent and have some honest communications, but they talked about information getting leaked. Like when you really need to have these serious conversations and you need to maybe be, honest and keep it 100 and be vulnerable or whatever it is you need to do. Hell, I'd be halfway worried that somebody's got their phone tucked away, recording, watching me ready to go out and say what I said, even if it's just a conversation that needed to happen to kind of clear the air. I think in 2024, those are dangers and pressures and things that you probably have to keep in mind that maybe you didn't have to, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Well, also I got to say this, you all obviously asked me, what was I hearing? And I was like, well, I'm hearing rumors, but I don't have anything credible. The first credible bit of information I got from Fort Valley.
Well, can't argue with you there. You did.
So to just blame this on FAMU people is just not true. My source that I quoted when I began to give information certainly was not from FAMU.
But that's the thing, though, right? Like, the information is going to get out. Like, people are going to
It's definitely been getting out of FAMU.
People are going to talk to us. They're going to talk to other people. People at multiple schools are going to talk. Not that we're discouraging not to do that. That's how this thing has always worked. But, you know, kind of circling back to my question, like, when you need to have these, you know, kind of intimate level conversations to unite and gain that community, there's always going to be somebody hate listening, right? Like, what you say, and this is what she said. And your words can get taken out of context. They can get clipped. Your phone calls can be recorded. Like, it's
nasty business sometimes.
And that's just our world, not only for ADs, but for anybody.
Well, there were a couple other things that, you know, I heard in the trustees meeting, and it may have come across as coded. I heard one of the trustees talking about back to our let me know how to rephrase it. What they said. They said we wanted to make sure that as one of our priorities, we maintain the academics and compliance. And I'm sitting there going, was that a hint about something? I just don't know. We don't know. But I was listening very closely to what everyone was saying. But
are you talking about when they said, you know, the type of recruits that we can get sooner than later could impact, you know, APRs and how important APR is?
Those things, yeah, those kind of things. So there are a lot of parts working together. This is not a simple process. It's a very complicated. College athletics is a very complex process, which is why you need so many experienced people working in it to make it work. It's just interesting because, just like we say, Florida is, you know, there are some schools you would never hear this about. You would never hear all of this at Bethune-Cookman because they are a private school that doesn't have to work in the sunshine.
Board of Trustees, Bethune-Cookman, are we going there?
You still wouldn't hear the depth.
I mean, when I think of Board of Trustees drama, I ain't gonna lie, I kind of think of Bethune-Cookman. Historically.
Yeah, I think they're carrying a trophy, but you know, it does still allow things that you necessarily would not want if you were a communications and media manager. You wouldn't want those things mentioned, but because we are in Florida with the Sunshine Law, which there's one thing they don't play with in Florida, you're gonna have everything accessible to the public. Or if it's not accessible right away, if they make a public records request, you better give it to them because they will put you in jail in Florida. And there's no uncertain terms. But just like I wanted to reemphasize about the coaching search, there was an amendment added about 2 years ago that will allow candidates to remain anonymous in high-profile situations such as a coach.
All right, let's get down to closing remarks. You listened to the Board of Trustees for an hour 45 minutes. You've been listening to us for the last 45 minutes. Steve, where do you think we are 3 weeks from now?
Tolly, your guess is as good as mine. You know, a day ago, I would have said Shawn Gibbs still would probably be the recommendation, and you know, then last night happened. By the time I got from Greenville to Atlanta, he was re-upped, and so then this morning I would have thought, okay, they're gonna go internal, and clearly that's not happened yet, and it doesn't look like that's gonna happen. So I don't know. You know, by the start of the 2024 season, FAMU will have a coach. Someone will be coaching the team. That's all I can say. You know, it's been pretty contentious. I think you know, that folks are gonna have to live with it because the season is approaching, and you know, the things will go on with or without with or without a new head coach?
I'm sitting here thinking, Vaughn, if you don't go internal, what would the sentiment be like if you hired, someone like Quinn Gray? Like, could you go and get a FAMU guy and just leapfrog, if you will, like internal FAMU guys that are there? Or I don't know. I'm just trying to think of potential candidates that aren't on the staff right now. And if your first candidate was kind of the benchmark of what you're looking for or what you like, and Shawn Gibbs, what could be next potentially?
Let me tell you what, to me, the most high-profile coach that's available out there right now is Fred McNair. I have a ton of respect for Fred McNair and what he's done, what he's built, and that sort of thing. But I don't know if Rattler fans will be receptive of him because they don't know if he looks like what they want to go back to, if you understand what I'm saying. McNair has won against the odds time and time again. He built the program at Alcorn where he was winning against the odds. Quarterback go down, somehow they still keep winning. Quarterback go down again, somehow they keep winning. He has a winning brand of football. I think right now what the alumni and the affinity groups are saying is we like the brand of football we've seen build up over the last 5 and 6 years. We want an opportunity to try this again. And this is why the coaching search is such a difficult undertaking for AD Sykes, who may want a breath of fresh air, who may have her own vision for what she wants to bring in, who when she was hired, she thought that she was just she would not have to go through these affirmations in order to hire a coach and jump through these hoops. But that's what FAMU is. If you research just the history, and not only FAMU, as I say, Alabama's AD talked to the people who write the biggest checks for Alabama before he decided to hire that coach. No doubt, no question whatsoever. He didn't unilaterally just go hire this coach and come back and tell them that. He went and told those people before, no doubt. One of the trustees said it. And they talked to other people from the state, and they talked to the boosters and this sort of thing. So trying to do that without the support of your boosters and your donors, it's just not a good mix. I'm sure AD Sykes learned that message loud and clear. This is her first time being athletic director. She might not have thought it was that big a deal, but at FAMU, it is a big deal. I have not heard, I'm not saying she's not, I have not heard her willingness to get back directly to dealing with those groups. So like she said, she's welcome everywhere with them. Welcome in their home, welcome to their cities on the strike tour and this sort of thing. I think there might be some hesitation with those groups at this point, just because the temper is so high. But for FAMU to be successful, that temper has to go back down. Somehow, the relationship with her and those affinity groups has to be mended in order for FAMU to be successful. If not, it's just going to be a lot of infighting and non-success. There is no way that it can flourish if they're on not on one page, because the amounts of money that are asked of these groups is significant.
All right, let's acknowledge the chat, some of these responses before we get out of here. Laurel Wilson absolutely agrees with what Jada said, and I miss what Jada said.
She needs the financial support in the recruitment and retention of a capable coaching staff. In my opinion, her somewhat apology was half-hearted and forced. Oof.
I was reading it, and then the comments scrolled up on me, so I appreciate that assist there, Steve.
It was an attempt.
Common sense says you're capping, Vaughn. So you have one dissenting at least here in the comments. Tiny Bubbles ATL, a new coach will want his own staff. We're about to lose players and coaches by hiring outside. She botched this entire process. Dwight Allen, if they pick the wrong coach, they will suffer wins for the football season in 2024. I think C.A. Pullen agrees with you, Vaughn. It is a deal at every school about hiring a coach. When you talked about talking to the boosters and having their input. Not everybody's on board with Fred McNair.
Yeah, we got Alabama U. You know, people are comparing him to Alabama. I mean, you know, he hasn't picked his head up in the last couple of weeks, but you know, there's a guy that used to wear orange and green, and I know folks didn't want him. But, you know, he's poked it.
Say a name.
Ed Reed.
All right, you've lost me. I didn't know who you were talking about.
Ed Reed. You know, at this point, I don't know. Maybe that's the middleman solution. I don't know.
Vanessa Byers says, let's be accurate and complete in reporting on this situation. There are current football players who support Coach Billy Roll also. We talked a lot about Billy Roll last week. Vaughn, internally, is that split? Colsey and Roll, is that like 50-50 internally, but people supporting them?
I've seen quite a split, but I've also seen that people would be satisfied with either. But yes, there absolutely is support. I've said over and over, there's massive support of those same affinity groups that we were talking about, the National Alumni Association, the Boosters, the Rattler F, 220 Club, all of them want Billy Roll. Every one of them. So you talk about the split. You're hearing from the players who are there on the day-to-day, and he was the guy that, when Coach Simmons left, was there. They're definitely in favor of Colsey. If you talk about the boosters and all of those affinity groups that they kept mentioning, it's overwhelmingly support for Billy Roll.
All right. Well, we could talk about this ad nauseum, but we've been through quite a, let's keep you up to track, almost, going on 3 hours now of conversation between the Board of Trustees and the Board of Game Day here. Vaughn, thank you so much for all of your efforts, man. You literally had to hold the radio to your microphone for over an hour and a half. You've brought us the best information you can. You've shown the pulse of the temperature in the room, if you will, of the alumni, and given us that inside access and really just explain, Sunshine Law, how that applies, how it doesn't apply, and of course all your expertise from all those Board of Trustees meetings that you have attended over the past, working with your father and his newspaper there in Tallahassee. Stephen J. Gaither made the trip to Atlanta in person today. Thank all of you guys in the comments. As always, shout out Miles. Miles in the back keeping us together. It was quite a day. We had to figure out how to bring you that Zoom after we were employee number 501 trying to check in there. But we finally got it done, and we got all of that audio, at the very least, to you. So it's a story we will continue to follow. Steve's got some content either up or coming at hbcugameday.com. He's been talking and writing. It's been quite a day, but the final word is FAMU is recommending a search committee to find a replacement for Willie Simmons, who has now moved on to Duke University. Vaughn, you said this.
Let me correct it, Tolly.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me correct it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
FAMU is recommending a search firm.
Search firm. I'm sorry. Wrong.
With
wrong
the
word.
addition of a search committee.
Sorry, I meant search firm. I said committee, but search firm. So a lot of chefs
with the addition of input from a search committee.
There you go.
That's the
got to get the verbiage right. Search firm with the addition of a committee. So
that costs money.
Yes, and time, because there's a lot of voices to be heard. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with us here. We'll talk about this as the week continues. This is HBCU Game Day. Follow us on social media. Go to our website, hbcugameday.com.
Tolly.
Yes, Vaughn. Yes. Oh, yeah, the belt. I forgot.
Yeah, man, they
capitalism is still alive.
They needed that today, man. They would have been jumping off the ropes and tag teaming and all of that good stuff.
Sleeper hold,
yeah.
Hurricane Rada.
For all those upset Rattlers, you can get one of these belts and put it on just like WWF and come off the top ropes on whoever you don't like. But we got We got a few more in the inventory. These are collectors. I don't think we're planning to do a reprinting, so might want to go ahead and grab yours.
As of now, no. As of now, it was 50. It was 50 belts. So you could be one of 50.
Yeah.
One of 50. But it's at the HBCU Game Day Shopify store. So Shopify HBCU Game Day. You can find it there. You can pay in installments. You can just drop it, like it's hot, whatever you want to do. And we'll
licensed and approved. Licensed and approved.
Yes. You see that TM there.
Yeah, so we're helping pay for that search firm, baby. Let's go. We're doing our points.
I literally have to leave here and go by the post office and mail some more out. We had some more orders this week. So if you ordered one, it's coming to you this week. If you hadn't received it already. All right, that's it. We're going to see you guys a little later. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Until next time, we are HBCU Game Day.